What if 5 highly trained U.S. Navy pilots, flying fully operational aircraft in perfect weather, on a routine training mission they had done many times before, suddenly lost all sense of direction, and then vanished completely without leaving even the smallest trace behind? No confirmed wreckage, no distress survivors, no final explanation that fully fits the facts. That is exactly what happened on December 5, 1945, in one of the most unsettling aviation mysteries ever recorded. Flight 19 was a group of 5 TBM Avenger torpedo bombers departing from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. The mission was simple on paper: a navigation exercise over the Atlantic, followed by a simulated bombing run and a return to base. The pilots were experienced, the aircraft were functioning normally, and the weather conditions were reported as calm and clear. There was no warning that this flight would become something far beyond a routine training operation. At first, everything proceeded normally. The squadron completed the initial part of their exercise and headed out over open water. But as time passed, the flight leader began reporting something unusual. His compass readings no longer made sense. He believed his instruments were malfunctioning. Soon after, the entire formation seemed to lose orientation. Instead of turning back toward Florida, they drifted farther into the Atlantic. Radio communications began to capture confusion and uncertainty. The flight leader described the sea below as looking unfamiliar, even wrong in some accounts. He believed they were over the Florida Keys, but instructors on the ground tried to correct him, insisting they were far off course. The instructors repeatedly gave headings to bring them back, but the instructions did not seem to match what the pilots were experiencing in the air. As the situation developed, something more troubling emerged. Not all aircraft in the formation were agreeing with the leader's position. At least one pilot suggested abandoning the lead and navigating independently, but the formation stayed loosely together. Their fuel was slowly decreasing, and daylight was fading. The urgency increased, but so did the confusion. The pilots were experienced enough to recognize danger, yet unable to resolve their exact location. At one point, the leader reportedly considered ditching the aircraft into the ocean rather than continuing in uncertainty. Another transmission suggested complete disorientation, as if they had no reliable reference points left. The ocean below offered no landmarks, and their instruments were no longer trusted. Then the radio transmissions began to weaken. Messages became fragmented, less frequent, and harder to interpret. After a final series of uncertain communications, everything stopped. 5 aircraft, multiple trained pilots, 1 coordinated mission, all gone silent at once. What makes this disappearance even more disturbing is what followed immediately after. The U.S. Navy launched a massive search and rescue operation, one of the largest of its time. Dozens of aircraft and ships scanned thousands of square miles of ocean. The expectation was simple. Even if the planes had crashed, there would be floating debris, oil slicks, or some trace of the wreckage. But the ocean offered nothing. No confirmed crash site. No bodies. No identifiable fragments. It was as if Flight 19 had simply dissolved into the sea. Then the mystery deepened further. A PBM Mariner rescue aircraft was dispatched to search for the missing squadron. This aircraft was large, heavily fueled, and designed for long-range sea operations. But shortly after takeoff, it also disappeared. Witnesses from nearby ships reported seeing a large explosion in the sky, followed by a fireball descending toward the ocean. The Navy later suggested a possible fuel vapor explosion as a cause, but again, no definitive wreckage was ever recovered. Now there were 2 disappearances in the same search operation, both ending without physical confirmation of what actually happened. The official investigation eventually concluded that Flight 19 likely became disoriented due to navigational error, possibly compounded by instrument malfunction and worsening weather conditions later in the flight. According to this theory, the pilots drifted farther out to sea, lost fuel, and were forced to ditch in the ocean where survival would have been extremely unlikely. The rescue aircraft, in turn, may have suffered a catastrophic mechanical failure or explosion unrelated to Flight 19 itself. However, even this explanation leaves uncomfortable gaps. The radio transmissions suggest a level of confusion that does not fully align with simple navigational error alone. The pilots were not inexperienced trainees. They were trained naval aviators familiar with instruments and procedures. The consistency of their confusion across multiple aircraft suggests something systemic rather than isolated failure. And most importantly, the total absence of physical evidence remains difficult to fully reconcile with a large-scale crash involving 5 aircraft. Over time, Flight 19 became one of the central events linked to the Bermuda Triangle, the loosely defined region of the Western Atlantic associated with unexplained disappearances of ships and planes. While modern research has not found evidence of any unusual physical phenomena in the area, the mystery persists largely because cases like Flight 19 leave behind incomplete narratives that are hard to close. Alternative explanations have been proposed over the decades. Sudden and localized weather anomalies could have caused disorientation and pushed the formation off course faster than expected. Human error in navigation over open water could have compounded small mistakes into a fatal deviation. Instrument failure, particularly compass errors influenced by magnetic variation, has also been suggested. In this scenario, multiple pilots trusting the same incorrect reference point would explain why the entire group followed the same path into danger. Some even suggest psychological factors, stress, fatigue, and confirmation bias, reinforcing a shared navigational mistake. Yet none of these theories fully explains everything. Why did experienced pilots lose consensus on their position so quickly? Why did search efforts fail to locate even partial wreckage across such a wide area? And why did a second aircraft vanish during the search operation itself, under conditions that should have been relatively controlled? The deeper investigators look into Flight 19, the more the case resists a single clean conclusion. Unlike many aviation disasters where wreckage tells the story, here the ocean remained silent. No definitive crash field has ever been confirmed. No conclusive debris field has ever been identified. Even modern searches and historical reconstructions have failed to produce a final, universally accepted explanation. Today, Flight 19 remains one of the most studied missing squadron cases in military aviation history. It sits at the intersection of documented fact and unresolved mystery. What is known is that 5 aircraft took off and never returned. What is unknown is how a routine training mission in clear weather could end with the complete disappearance of an entire formation, followed by another aircraft set to find them vanishing as well. The Atlantic never gave back an answer, and the final moments of Flight 19 remain suspended in uncertainty, locked somewhere between human error, environmental conditions, and a mystery that still challenges anyone trying to reconstruct what truly happened that day in 1945.